Well, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for our new knowledge session. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I'm with Virginia Community Capital, and we are happy to be a partner in this professional development series with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abington. Before we get started and I turn it over to our co-host, just a few little housekeeping things. Want to let you know that this session is being recorded for educational and training purposes and will be available on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and then our New Knowledge YouTube channel, youtube.com/new knowledge and available. So I'm happy to have Nita Farmer, the Executive Director of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, as my co-host today. So Nita, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can introduce our guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. So nice to be here today, and I just want to welcome everyone. Today we've got a treat. We've got Juan Garcia here with us, and he is the partner for HBC CPAs. And today he's got a great topic for us. He's going to be talking about QuickBooks. He's going to be talking about desktop versus online. So welcome, Juan.
Thank you. I do appreciate you all having me, and I'll jump right into the presentation. And then after the presentation, we'll have some questions and some interaction.
Juan, and I just wanted to point out to folks while you're bringing up your screen that we do have everyone muted for security reasons. We didn't want to get Zoom bombed. We've had this happen before. So if you have a question for Juan during his session, please post those in the Q&A or the chat, and we will address those at the end of the session. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. I just want to verify with you, Sandy, that everyone can see the presentation started.
It's that. Thank you.
Okay. Again, my name is Juan Garcia. I'm with a local CPA firm, HBC, here in Abington, Virginia, and I'm going to go over QuickBooks today, desktop versus online. So the contents of this presentation is features and a comparison of desktop online or desktop and online. Then we'll go on to add-ons that you can add on to each one of these programs, and then the pros and cons of those programs. A lot of this is, my personal preference as to which one on the pros and cons, but I try to detail out as much as possible so that you can make an educated decision between the two. So some features. Here's what I like about online. You can access this program from anywhere as long as you have internet connection. With that, you can download invoices, have checks, run reports, do time management, project management, and so forth. You can directly link this to your bank and have that software added in or that information added into that software. It's a very easy linkage. This syncs with apps, including phone access. So there's over 200 apps that you can include in online that helps you with various aspects of the accounting. You can easily grant access to other users by using your online phone access or your online access through the internet. This is backed up automatically with QuickBooks. On desktop, what I like about it is you have unlimited company files. Now, what this means is if you buy the program, you can run multiple companies without buying that program for each individual company. So you can set up as many companies as you want to. There is limitations to that with payroll and inventory, but the basic accounting is pretty open. You get the classes features included in the basic desktop version. With online, you have to purchase a stepped up version in order to get this feature. You buy and own the software. So once you buy this software, it's on your computer and you can keep the historical data for as long as you have that software on that computer. Do not need internet access. So if you're in a place that does not have that access, you can run this from a laptop computer or desktop computer, and all you have to have is a battery or power to get into this. And you always keep your files. So that means that basically 10 years down the road, you can access this software and have those files. So what I have done here is features and a comparison that you can look at the two side by side. Desktop QuickBooks is a little more price affordable because it's a one-time fee that you pay. And as long as you don't have any of these separate modules, that one-time fee will allow you to run up to 3 years. Multiple plans for easy scalability, so you can get a very basic QuickBooks desktop version, or you can have something in the enterprise which runs multiple things for nonprofits, construction, and so forth. When you look at the QuickBooks plans, there's plans available for up to 25 users. It is more expensive. It usually runs on a monthly fee. And the reporting, it has excellent reporting capability, but I do prefer the QuickBooks desktop version for the reports. They are working on that for online to make that a better program in the reporting, and they have partnered with some other apps in order to do that. Here's the could be better section, and it compares the two. You don't have phone access that good. It's through a VPN only with desktop. One of the biggest detriments to online is the response time. So inputting data can be slow depending on when you're doing it. Key features are very similar with the two. Here's the pricing. So you have 3 basic plans with desktop. The Pro, which is $400 a year, $650 for Premier, and then $1,213 is the base for Enterprise. You have your simple starts, and sometimes these are discounted for at least the first 3 months, but it goes from $25 up to Advanced of $150. And both are fairly easy to use, and I'm going to go through some examples of that a little later. Here is a shell company that I created just for the presentation here. So this is the basic menu item that you have when you go into desktop online. The tasks, banking, sales goes in and goes into other features that you can access. This is the same page for desktop. So you can see there is a difference there. The desktop is what a lot of people has used and used to this. The online is as easy to maneuver as long as when you learn how to do that. The taskbar online, which is this item, which I went over before, is your basic ways to navigate this program. So you've got your banking, your sales, your expenditures, payroll, accounting, reports, and then anything that's not listed in this area, you go up to the button at the top that says New, and that New button will allow you to do various other things. And those various other things is this. You can do new invoicing for customers, receive payments. You've got vendors, anything to do with vendors, including expense checks, bills, employees. You can add employees, do your payroll, and then others, make journal entries. This is the biggest thing here that I find that users have a hard time in finding is how do I make a journal entry? So if you're ever at a question of how to use online or how to do something, you basically go to this New button and you should be able to find that. To go to the taskbar and menu on desktop, these are the 2 basic menus. Up at the top, it's the standard bar that you see in most programs that has file, edit, and so forth. So you got your reporting, banking, very similar to online. It's just a different look at here. And then on your quick or shortcuts, you can set this up and basically set this home, my computer, or my company income tracking to whatever you want to see in this area. So wherever you're at in the program, this is going to show up that you can click and access that part of the program at that time. So for online invoicing, fairly simple. You basically go to the invoicing section on your menu or taskbar. You put in the information for the customer, the billing address, the terms, the date, and if they're going to make online payments or not. You code this to the account you want, the amount, the rate, and the class. Now, what this class allows you to do both in the online version and the desktop version is to run separate projects, which QuickBooks uses projects or jobs also, but I like using the class feature because it's easier to get reports out of both by using the class. So, for example, for a nonprofit, we're running a nonprofit general expenditures and revenue in the class. We set up a general class. Then if we have a project or a grant that comes in, and that grant is to account for federal money under grant agreement 001, we can set up a new class and keep track of all those expenses and that revenue coming in. And that will enable us to run very easy reports of profit and loss by class. So I find that this class feature is very useful to QuickBooks, both online and desktop. So to go to the invoicing on desktop, you also see looks very similar. You've got your quantity, the description, price of each, or rate, amount, and you put in your information very similar to the other. You don't see classes here because you have to actually assign that once you enter all the information, then it will ask you the class. So it's not as easy to see it, but it has the same feature. Okay, when we go into bill payment or bills, very similar to the invoicing here. If you look at the overall structure, vendor name, put the category, description, amount, what the customer is, and again, you put your class in order to allocate it to that class. You don't have to use this feature. If you leave this blank, then it will put it in an undetermined class in both of the softwares. This is your bill input for desktop. Looks very similar to online. And this is how you pay your bills. So basically in online, you select the ones that you wish to pay and you go to the next step to schedule that payment when you want to schedule it, and it will then process those checks. That looks very similar to desktop version here. We don't have any currently here, but those would be listed here. You would put that you want to pay those and go to the next step, and it would then you would be ready to cut those checks. So some add-ons to online. You've got 4 basic groups that if you want to use or programs. You got your Simple Start, which is the most basic. Essentials, which comes up a little higher, gives you a few more features. Plus, which gives you a few more features, a few more users, and then Advanced, which goes up to the 25 users, and it's the most expensive there. This is fairly new to online. They're trying to add and get very more report driven with this Advanced. You can add on payroll. You can add on other apps like QuickBooks Payments, QuickBooks Time, which is a timekeeper program, and QuickBooks Capital, which is a fixed asset management program. You got app integration, which I mentioned before, which is banking linkage, where you can link separate bank accounts. The hardest part that I have found for clients is they feel that they can only link one bank account, but you can link multiple bank accounts with this linkage. You can link your PayPal in it, and it will directly record payments when you receive those and record in your GL, memorize those transactions, and post to those expense accounts. You can link this to tax programs also and integrate it with those apps. Third-party timekeeper you can integrate with online. And as I mentioned before, there's over 200 third-party apps that you can link to online. Of course, I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're easily integratable with this software. To look at desktop, same thing. We've got 3 basic programs, Pro being the lowest end, Premier, and then Enterprise. Enterprise has 4 tiers that you can focus on. Payroll you can do as an add-on to that. inventory. You can also do an add-on. Point of sale, they have another module that you can purchase through QuickBooks Desktop, which will allow you to do point of sale. Also use QuickBooks Payments, QuickBooks Time, and QuickBooks Capital. So these are for both online and desktop versions. Again, there's more than 200 third-party apps, which you can link with the desktop version, but with most of those apps, you do have to have internet access in order for them to work. You have unique enterprise editions, which is the 4 tiers. You can get it for manufacturing, you can get it for wholesale, contracting, accounting, professional services, retail, and nonprofit. The ones that I mostly see using the desktop version is contractors and nonprofits, which uses this enterprise section. Most people will use the Premier for their day-to-day business. So some pros and cons. Some pros of online is, again, same thing of what I liked is you can access it from anywhere. I have approximately 20 clients that I use online for, and I can access their books for questions anytime as long as I have my phone with me. So I use that feature daily. With the mobile app, very easy to download, very easy to link. Once you sign in, it loads all that information. You can run reports. You can see profit analysis. You can see payroll analysis through that app. Another big benefit is multiple users is included, and multiple users can use this without the use of a VPN or the use of a remote access desktop. So you can have 25 separate people in online and not have any issues with the functionality. It may be a little slower, but the functionality is still there. It is very easy to get around. If you had never touched QuickBooks Desktop and you went onto online to access that information, you would see that it is very easy to maneuver through it, not being familiar with desktop. Some cons of this is it's more expensive. It will run anywhere from $25 a month at the discounted rate up to $150 a month. When you can pay for the base desktop, you can pay about $400 a year and have that functionality there. No industry specific additions. So basically there's those 3 base tiers that you have, and those are the ones that you can use. There's no concentration that you can buy a enterprise version for contractors. They don't make that. Again, slower data entry due to when you're using it in internet connection. And the inventory on the desktop is much better, your inventory management. So pros of desktop. You've got a purchase one-time fee, which is good for up to 3 years as long as you do not have the payroll module. The payroll module does require you to purchase that part of it on an annual basis to update any withholdings. Fast navigation and data input. It is much faster. One license allows a bookkeeper for unlimited companies. So again, you can run 10 companies through one software. There's industry specific editions available. Some cons. Each requires additional license for full price. So the biggest con that I see is a remote desktop. And if you have a remote desktop that you have 10 people entering that licensing can be touchy as to does QuickBooks allow you to do that. So you really should have a separate license for each one of those users that's accessing that. You can't access company data from remote locations easily. You can do it through a VPN or remote desktop, but you have to have a dedicated computer or dedicated server holding that software in order to do it. And network installation does take an IT specialist in most cases. And if you do not do the annual, you just run this for the 3-year period, then the customer support is not there unless you pay the additional annual subscription amount. So I do have a YouTube video with this. Unfortunately, the sound will not work over the presentation. So I have included this link here, and the PDFs will be available for the participants. You can hover over this link, or you can just type this in to your to an internet search engine, and it will bring up this YouTube, and it goes through a comparison done by QuickBooks itself, which will give you a little more insight into the functionality of those programs. So with that, I've left it open with questions. If there's questions about some maneuverability and I know how to do it, I can share my screen and include a description of how to move in QuickBooks Online to get you to certain places. So I'll open it up for questions.
I don't see any right now in our Q&A section, but I have a question. As someone that has a number of clients, what do you see is the mistake most used by clients that gets them into trouble?
Not setting up their software correctly. So going into either QuickBooks or QuickBooks Desktop, not understanding how they need to set up their chart of accounts, their classes, their information of the reports that they want to get out. So when they set it up incorrectly, then getting that information out is very difficult, even though you do have an accounting software. So I had set up a recent one for our construction company, and we used those classes here recently for those separate jobs. You can set it up through jobs, but it's much harder for the client to get that information out if they're not familiar with that, how online does it. So we switched that completely, started from scratch for them, and set these up as classes, which allows them to easily run profit and loss reports for each project that is currently going on. Now, online limits those classes to 40. Well, if you inactivate or deactivate those classes at the end of the job, whenever it's done, then you still have that historical data in your system, but it doesn't use those classes. So they were using classes differently, and they had subclasses. One thing to think about when you're doing those subclasses is every time you put a subclass in, it actually uses your class and your subclass, so it uses 2 classes for each one of those, and that dwindles down your 40 that you could then only have a very small amount of allocation between those.
Juan, I have a question.
Sure.
Coming from like a nonprofit, which one do you think that you get the most value with? I guess depending on, how big your organization is, if you have a very small office, and if you do have your own CPA that works with you and everything, is desktop more feasible, or online where you can always call your accountant and he can work with you?
Well, if you've asked me this 2 years ago, we was in a very different world 2 years ago. I liked desktop. I liked desktop because mostly I was used to it. I knew how to maneuver and get around in it. It was something that'd been around for a long time, and the reports was much easier to get those reports out for individuals, for my clients. In today and how we have moved to more of a virtual environment when it comes to accounting, I am moving more and more people to online because of that ease of accessibility. You can access it from anywhere. If they have a problem, they can invite me to it as one of their 25 users, depending on what program they have, and I can access that, makes changes, and I can do it from my office, my home, or riding in passenger a car, I can pull it up and do it there if I have a question. If they have a question,
That makes sense. I know the only thing that I've noticed, because we work with both desktop and online, it seems like with desktop, you can maybe do more reports. I don't know if that's so or not. I might just not know a lot about online at this point.
Yeah, online has introduced, and I could get the name wrong because it's been a couple of days since I looked at it, but I think it's Phantom. That now, if you can, they're using Phantom to create different reports, and you can customize reports now through there. It does make it much more report friendly, where you can get more reports out. And that was my biggest drawback. Like I said, 2 years ago, is you could not access the reports that I like seeing through online over desktop. They've come a long way in the last couple of years, and they're using these third-party apps to pull that information. And when all else fails, both can dump to Excel, and you can dump that source data to Excel and create any report you want to see just by using pivot tables or linkage to templates.
That is some really good information. I was not aware of that. So thank you.
Juan, we have a question from Kathy Lowe on chat. She's on a computer that doesn't have a camera or audio, but she says they struggle with credits in their online version of QuickBooks. Any insight that you could share with them that might could help them around that issue?
So on the credits, the biggest problem there is making sure that you assign them to, I assume you're talking, Kathy, about credits to customers who has made payments and or issuing credits for invoices where maybe you're writing something off. You have to make sure that those credits are applied, and it's through that invoicing section that you apply those credits. So there's two different credits, and that's why it's kind of, I'm not sure which one she's talking about. If it's credit on the revenue side, which is the accounts receivable, or is it credits on the invoicing side, which is the accounts payable. So you can have credits that someone has issued you that you're trying to apply. So when on the invoicing side, when you go to pay that payment, then that credit should be there, and you have to apply those credits before you actually pay the payments.
Also, how do we move security deposits from liabilities to P&L?
Okay.
That's another Kathy.
Okay, so in that scenario, you have a security deposit on your liabilities listed as a deferred revenue or unearned revenue that you have to actually go in and you have to make a journal entry to get that off of there and record that then up in your accounts receivable to that customer. And then you apply the credit from that point. So you actually have to move that liability up to that accounts receivable. Or that's the easiest way that I found to do those credits.
She said, thank you very much. And one, I noticed in folks that are viewing, we have a number of nonprofits. Any words of wisdom from the nonprofit in regards to which version is best for them in regards to QuickBooks?
I would say that if you're using QuickBooks on your nonprofit, if you're a large nonprofit that is having multiple $1 million run through it and multiple grants, which is probably more than 25 separate grants that you need to keep track of, I would suggest using the desktop version and putting that in a remote desktop or a virtual network that multiple people can access it. You can limit the access to individuals. You can use it to access to users by doing that. And so therefore, if you have someone that's doing accounts payable and that's their primary job, they can only access the modules when they go to that virtual network for accounts payable. But then your accounts receivable can access the modules for accounts receivable. I would suggest doing that. If you have less than 25 grants, I think that the accessibility for the online is very beneficial, even if the cost is a little more. So I would suggest using the online version because you can use it from anywhere.
I could see that too. And typically, sometimes in nonprofits, you have more turnover with staff than you do in the for-profit businesses. So that would help you as the director or whoever's over accounting stay on top. But of course, like anything, it's only as good as what information that you keep it. You
Right.
keep the information in there and keep it updated.
And one thing to keep in mind with online is they only allow you to have 25 users. Right now, that's the max number of users you have. So if you feel that you need more than that when it comes to your accounts payable people, accounts receivable people, fixed assets, your CFO, controller, when you start adding these people, that 25 gets dwindled down quite quickly. So if you feel that you're going to be close there, I would go right now with the desktop version.
Okay. Nita, do you have any other questions?
No, it's been very informative. He's answered a lot of questions that I've wondered about. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Again, if there's any questions about functioning or working in QuickBooks Online, I'll be happy to give you some examples and kind of share my screen and go through that. But if not, I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and go over these questions.
Well, thank you, Juan. We couldn't do this program without folks like yourself sharing your expertise and experience with our business community and nonprofits to help them. That's why we're doing this, is to help them gain some professional development in running their operations. So thank you again for your time. Just want to put a plug in that our next session will be held on May the 19th. That will be the value of collaboration, which is what we're doing today, is collaborating with our partners, and that will be presented by Kim Brown. So I hope that you will make.
We've got a question.
Okay.
Another question. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's fine.
It says, will QuickBooks help us track donations and enable us to send acknowledgement letters to donors for their tax needs?
Absolutely. What you would do through there is through your invoicing or your sales, you would set those donors up as customers. And so when you receive those donations, you have those customers as a nonprofit. Then at the end of the year, you can run that report, which includes their name, address, and will then give you a summary of how much that they contributed and the dates they contributed. You can also document if they have given cash or cash equivalent, or if they have donated in-kind services, that you can also record through there. And then you basically merge that, you dump that information into Excel, you create you a template letter for all your donors, and you have that mail merge that merges with that Excel and pulls all that information in. Very simple to do if you use it through the sales and customer feature.
So this really is better than the shoebox method.
Yes, much better. It all goes back to what I said earlier. It's the setup of your chart of accounts, the setup of the structure. And if you are new to doing either one of those, then get some help in doing that, because once you set that up, you're pretty much, it's hard to change it because it changes that historical data. You want to get that set up initially so that it foresees where you're going in the future and can adjust for that.
Great. Just a reminder, folks, that we'll be sending out Juan's PowerPoint and a link to this recorded video that you can view. It will be available on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/new knowledge, where you will find well over 120 to 130 of these new knowledge sessions that we've been doing since, it's hard to believe, since 2015 that we've been recording those. I don't know of a program in Virginia that has been as long-standing as we have in supporting our business community. So want to thank everybody. I don't see any other questions unless I am missing it somewhere. But again, Juan, thank you. Thanks, Nita. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. And as I say it, you'll see in the email, if you found value in it, share it with someone else that could benefit as well, either a business owner or a nonprofit. But thank you, everybody. Stay healthy, stay well, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.